So good morning everybody and welcome to the city of Nanning in the heart of China's Guangxi province. Great excitement here as some of the best distance runners from around the world have gathered for a very special road race. It's not about times here, there'll be no pacemakers. This is about prestige and it's about medals, because this is the 19th edition of the IAAF Sinopec World Half Marathon Championships. This event was first held in Great Britain back in 1992, and since Liz McColgan of Britain and Scotland and Benson Massa, the Kenyan, took the inaugural titles, the reputation of this championship has gone from strength to strength. Over the last 18 years we've had Olympic champions, world champions on the track and world record holders adding their names to an illustrious list of winners. Magnificent views from our helicopter this morning. We'll be talking you through the course a little bit later on. And with regards to this women's race, one name we're particularly looking out for is Florence Kiprop, the Kenyan. She's probably the favourite, but there's Tune on the left of your picture there, one of the Ethiopians. Tadese alongside her. There is just a glimpse of Kiprop just on the left of your picture there. So these women just preparing themselves. It's a very hot, humid day here. You can see it's quite overcast. A couple of missed points along the course just to give them an opportunity to cool off. But we start and finish here in Wujiang Square, heart of the commercial district here in the city. And when I arrived this morning there was great excitement actually. So here we go then. They're just moving forward to the start line. The men will go in half an hour's time. So all the months of training, the climax of the year, and this is it. It has been a very long campaign. There's the world record by Lorna Kiprop. She set that in 2007. And she's won 3 editions of this championship. So has Tegla Larupe, and so too Paula Radcliffe. So nervous moments then for these women as we just prepare for the off. A couple of other very useful Kenyans to keep your eye on is Penia Aruse and Joyce Chepkurui. But we've got competitors from all over the world for this one. They've come here to take the gold medals. Since 1992, this race has taken place North America, South America, here in Asia, Great Britain. And it's really established itself on the global stage.
China,
the Tannoy announcers are just introducing a few of the competitors to the crowd. But here we go then, we're just preparing for the start of the 2010 IAAF Sinopec World Half Marathon Championship. 69% humidity you can see there. There are the 2 Kenyans. We've got 3 women who've gone under 68 minutes in this field. And we're getting ready for the off now. Here we go. So they're underway. I don't think anyone will be too keen to go too hard too early, but we'll keep you posted on the times and the splits as they head round the course. 2 big groups separated very early on there. There's Aruse on the left. She's one of the athletes I was telling you about who's gone under 68 minutes. Expect the Japanese to go well in this race because they're so used to competing here in humid conditions. Tune just tucked in behind Aruse. Kiprop is sort of second, third from the left in your picture. Sorry, from the right. So Florence Kiprop, who turned a few heads with her half-marathon debut in Lille, running 67:40. I put her in the top 20 of all time, incidentally, but very early stages in this women's race. The Kenyans will be feeling pretty confident here. They do love running together and dictating the pace. And in fact, if you watched the Commonwealth Games recently, you would have seen a fantastic series of performances by the Kenyan team. They finished top of the athletics medal table with 11 gold medals. And on Thursday, they achieved a historic double. They won the men's and the women's marathons on the very hot and humid streets of Delhi. So the Kenyans really going well this year. Just got a glimpse of Nikki Chappell, actually, running on the back of that group. The Australian won the Melbourne 15K last year. And we'd also be expecting to see Benita Willis feature in this race. Well, many of you would know her as Benita Johnson, of course. Keep our eye out for her. I can't see her in that group at the moment. So there is just confirmation of what we already knew, that Kenya have arrived here with a stellar lineup. Eunice Kales, second in the Berlin half this year. She's gone under 70 minutes. Joyce Chepkarui, still a teenager. She's had 7 really good victories over the half marathon this year, which is incredible when you think that she's just 18 or 19 years old. It's not entirely clear what her date of birth is, but to be running so many composed half marathons at that age is fantastic. There's a little glimpse there of Tune on the left, just behind Arusi. She won the Boston Marathon 2 years ago, the Ethiopian. She's gone under 2:25 at the full marathon distance, third in the Abu Dhabi half marathon this year, and she's bidding to become only the first Ethiopian to take this title since Bahane Adere back in 2002. So she'd love to turn back time. There's great rivalry and history between these two fantastic nations, and it's been so good over the last 20 or 30 years to see that the Kenyan and Ethiopian women have emerged on the global stage to be, well, you could argue as strong as their male counterparts. The likes of Habiba Bikila, first black African to win an Olympic title for Ethiopia, winning the marathon in 60, and then we had Kip Keino taking golds in 1968 and 72 for Kenya. So we've been used to seeing the East African men dominating the global scene for a long, long time, but with the emergence of athletes like Duratu Tulu, who took the 1992 10,000 meter title in Barcelona, suddenly a whole generation have been spawned, and that is why in your picture at the moment, running almost in unison, it is a wave of Kenyans and Ethiopians. There's Nikki Chappell, as I said. She was wearing 100, the Australian. Now we'll have a little look at the 2K split. You can just see in the foreground the 2 kilometre marker. Just get a glimpse of what sort of schedule these women are running on at the moment. There is Tune, left of your screen. Done a great job here, the Chinese organisers. As I said when I arrived this morning, there was great excitement around the square as we prepared for this championship. Russi at the moment leading them through as they close in on the 2 kilometre point. 6:15, they've just gone through the first 2k. But to give you some indication, that is fast. That's around about 67-minute pace for the half marathon. Now bear in mind, the world record 66:25, so that would be a very, very good time in these conditions. They're not hanging around, these women, and that is why we've so quickly seen a big group of East Africans off the front. There's a look back down the field, and you can see just how quickly they've all been pushed out the back. A bit of bumping and barging there, back of that chase group as they go around the corner. The 67-minute pace is a real declaration of intent by the East Africans in these early stages. Well, here we are then, in Nanning. We're just going to get a little glimpse of the course. Course takes them out. The 7k point is Dongi Road. They run past the Zhuangzi People's Hall, Minzu Square. Quite a few twists and turns on this course. They call this the Green City of China, incidentally. Although with a pace like we've seen at the start of the women's race, there'll be absolutely no time to take in the views. Wonder what this guy's best time is. There are a couple of mist stations along the course to help the athletes not used to the humidity. And we have personal water stations as well. That's a familiar sight on the Major Championship Athletics now. And then the twist and turn, and it all finishes back in Wujiang Square. But just look at what that early pace has done to the race. 4 Kenyans running in unison, side by side, and as if by magic, directly behind them, we have all the Ethiopians. And there's Nikki Chappell. World class as a junior, the Australian, but rather held back by injuries. She won a half marathon in Burnley earlier this year. She's got a season's best of 68:37. That's a pretty decent time. And she's doing really well at the moment to stay with this lead group, because it's all about East Africa at the moment, but that's good work by the Australian. Chep Karui just in front at the moment. Remember, she's the teenager, got a best under 70 minutes. But a real picture of quality here, and at some stage this will turn into a really intriguing race. Tadese just having a little glance over her shoulder, actually, just to say to one of her teammates, hey, come on, we need to spread out a little bit here. Very easy for trips and bumps and barges to happen when you're running in such a close pack. We've seen people fall before in major championships on the roads and on the track. I remember Tiranish Dababa getting up from a fall, the Ethiopian, to take the World Championship title in Osaka 3 years ago. That was a moment of drama. Still the Kenyans determined to force the pace. Florence Kiprop. Probably the smallest of the 4 Kenyans in that lead group. In fact, her partner Moses Mossop goes in the men's race. He's the 3rd fastest in the world this year. Excuse me. So imagine how good their children could be one day. The men's race incidentally starts some 15 or 20 minutes time, and then we'll be rocking and rolling between the 2 fields, trying to keep you abreast of all the action. And Chappell, just off the back of that group, is maybe starting to struggle a little bit. It's really difficult psychologically if you are 5 or 10 meters adrift of a big pack of runners, especially when they're looking so comfortable as these women are. So Chappell will just want to try and close that gap down. They're still running at 67-minute pace. They've just gone through 4K in about 12:40. And this is really, really good pacing early on. And in fact, although we can see a whole host of Ethiopians and Kenyans, there aren't many women in this group who've run those sort of times. So at some stage, as this race unfolds, even some of these women are going to drop off the back, because this is a really good pace. That's Joyce Chepkurui, the teenager. So when will someone be prepared to take a move? Penina Arusi on the left of your screen has been quite happy to hug the right-hand side of the course. And equally, Dire Chune, the Ethiopian, has been more than happy to sit in directly behind her. Quite a few people think that the Ethiopian woman has a really good chance here. But it's Arusi on the left of your picture, still dominating the pace here at the moment. So used to watching major championship marathons when you know you've got 2 hours 20, 2 hours 25 to watch the race unfold, but with 15 minutes on the clock, with the pace these women are running, we're almost a quarter of the way through here. And I just wonder whether they've slowed down just a tiny bit, because Nikki Chappell's got back on terms with that group. And it'll also be interesting to see when one or two of these athletes start reaching for a drink. As I said, it is very hot and sticky out there, despite the fact that it's overcast and you can't really see the sun. These are challenging conditions. And they're still running on course for around about the 67-minute mark. They've slowed a little tiny bit, maybe dropped 5 or 10 seconds between the 4th and 5th kilometres. But this is still a really good pace being pushed on by these women. And Penine Aruzi glancing over her shoulder, checking who's there. And now they all start to go for a drink. And I think that's a really sensible move, actually. I would have been surprised if all of those women had gone past that water station and not taken anything on board. And that's a sensible move. Aruzi just sharing the bottle with Chep Karui and Chep Church here. Train together, a lot of these women know each other inside out, and whilst of course they'll all want to do well individually, there is a real team spirit among these squads. Benita Willis, or Benita Johnson as she used to be known, just going through, and you can see the rest of this field have been blown apart by the early pace set by the Kenyans. Already many quality athletes are some 35 to 40 seconds adrift. We've got the not insignificant matter of the team competition as well. Gold, silver and bronze to be awarded. And it's going to be a real battle between the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. You can have up to 5 athletes representing your country here, and the times of your top 3 finishers will be added together to produce the team score. And look at that, locked together, Kenya and Ethiopia, first and second. Japan adrift, and then Australia going well, courtesy of Nikki Chappell and Benita Willis back in the pack. But the Kenyans have won 3 of the last 4. They took the title in 2006, 2007, and last year in 2009. Had to settle for silver 2 years ago behind the Ethiopians, so there's real pride at stake in that competition as well. Three Kenyan-born athletes have won this title. Tegla Larupe, what a legendary athlete she was. She had a hat-trick in 97, 98 and 99. And her countrywoman, who married a Dutchman, so represents them, Lorna Kiplagat, the world record holder. She took the golds in 2006, 2007 and 2008. America Tani last year. So one of these Kenyan women bidding to add their name to a rich seam of talent who've emerged on the female distance running scene from their country over the last 10 or 15 years. And as I mentioned, Bahane Adere is the last Ethiopian to claim the individual gold 8 years ago. And how The Ethiopians would love to put that right here. Just got a little glimpse of the chase group there before the camera zoomed in the background. Interesting to see them in sight line, actually. Tadese just running at the back of that group on the right-hand side. She was 7th in the World Cross Country Championships. Kiprop now leads on the inside, on the left of your screen, where Aruzi had been running for such a long time. And we can see the chase group are 20 seconds adrift. I did wonder, actually, whether they were maybe not closing, but closer than we thought they were by having a glimpse of them in shot. Japanese athletes trying to keep their good record in the team event going. Bronze in 2005, 2006, 2007 and 2008. Missed out last year and want to make amends here, closer to home. And I do think the humidity and their ability to cope with these conditions will come into play in the latter stages of the race. But Kiprop and Aruzi and Chip Korea, 3 women who've gone under 68 minutes. There's Zhu of China. Very consistent performer, the Chinese athlete. 4th at the World Championships in Osaka. And 5th last year in Berlin. But she's part of the chase group, battling to get into contention here. Just a reminder of how humid it is. 68% humidity. It's worth pointing out at this stage as well that people may assume that all Africans can shrug off the effects of humidity, but that isn't the case, because certainly as far as the Kenyans and the Ethiopians are concerned, a lot of their training will be done at high altitude. Kenyans have camps around Eldoret, Iten, Kapsagat, and of course they're used to running in hot weather. But if you've ever been to the Rift Valley, you'll know that whilst it is very warm, it's not at all humid. For the humidity in Kenya, you'd have to go down to Mombasa, and we saw the effects of just how difficult that could be at the World Championships 3 years ago, when Kenenisa Bekele dropped out and lost to Aruzane Tadese, who's going for his 4th title in the men's race. They'll be gearing up to start shortly. Just noticed Kiprop went for a drink at the previous station, still running on the left there, and wasn't able to get one, and she shared a glance with one of her teammates to say, hey, what's going on there? So she'll need to make sure, if she is feeling a little bit thirsty, that she gets some liquid on board at the next opportunity. And interesting to notice Nikki Chappell, the Australian, just drifting off the back of that group now. The 5 meters or so has emerged between her and this handful of Kenyans and Ethiopians. And if she can't get back on terms, she's probably going to be swallowed up by that second pack of runners, who you once again got a glimpse of in the back of shot just before they went round that corner. The city has geared up to host its world-class athletes in fine style over the last few days. Very grand opening ceremony. They've been really excited about hosting this championship. There is a mass race to get underway later this morning as well. So plenty of Chinese fun runners will have the chance to grace the same roads that these athletes are currently pounding, although I suspect it might take a few thousand of them a little while longer than the 67-minute pace that these women are currently producing. Mengistu just on the right of shot there. Then Tadese. Mengistu, incidentally, who is on the right of your picture there, 11th in the championships 2 years ago. Still only 20 years old. Amazing to think of these women being able to produce times and performances of such maturity when they're still so young. The old school of thought about graduating from 5 and 10,000 meter running up to half marathons and marathons in your mid to late 20s. Been a traditional route for many athletes. But we're now seeing a breed of East Africans who somehow find that level of stamina in their late teenage years. Amazing to watch. Dire Tune. Can't see her at the moment, the tiny Ethiopian, but she's there on the far side of that group. I was just looking through it to check that she hadn't dropped off for some reason. And it's sometimes the quiet ones you have to watch out for. There she is. She's just between Kiprop and Arusi on the left-hand side of the screen. People's Palace, just one of many sites available on this course, but to be honest, these women won't care where they're running. The sights and the looking around and soaking up the atmosphere will be for the fun runners who will be out on the course a little bit later this morning. This is the very serious business of World Championship gold medals. So it's the battle between Kenya and Ethiopia in the women's race, but in the men's race it's all about Zerxane Tadese, the Eritrean who has been the star of the show for the last 4 years. World cross-country champion in 2007 when Kenenisa Bekele dropped out. Brilliant silver medal at the World Championships last year behind Bekele. He's a man who has performed at the top level on the track, on cross-country and on the road. World record holder. He broke Sami Wanjiru's 58.33 by 10 seconds in Lisbon back in March. And he's bidding to make it 5 in a row. So can the Eritrean keep his golden run going here on the streets of Nanning? We have a Chinese athlete off the front, fancying his moment or two in the spotlight. Once again, a huge number of nations represented here. The Kenyans have got an absolutely fantastic team here. All 5 of their athletes have broken 60 minutes this year, which is an incredible statistic, really. But they'll all be chasing Tadese. He hasn't had a perfect year, the Eritrean. Disappointed with his performance at the London Marathon. And in fact, when he took his first world title, which was actually over 20k in 2006, journalists were already asking him about his step up to the marathon, and that's been the only thing that hasn't really gone according to plan for him. He dropped out of London last year. He was 7th this year, which I know he was disappointed with. But when it comes to the half marathon, he is totally imperious, or certainly has been up until this point in his career. And the interesting thing about the fact that he won in Osaka is that it shows you he can perform in hot, humid, sticky weather. Very big group running together, which maybe gives you an indication that perhaps the early pace is not as fast in the men's race as it was in the women's, because the split after a couple of kilometres in the women's race was incredible. World-class athletes just blown out the back in the very early stages. Tadese is just sort of towards the right of your previous shot. He is running at the front. He kind of leans forward quite a lot. You can just see him there, sandwiched between the two Kenyans. There he is, just sort of up and left a little bit from the clock. And they went through the first kilometre. That was very steady for the men, very steady indeed. I got that around, it looked as though it was maybe 3:05, so that would explain why so many of them are together. And maybe we'll see a very different kind of race here for the men. And just as I say that, bang on cue, Tadese says, right, I've had enough of this hanging around. I'm hitting the front. I want to make it 5 in a row. And suddenly, what was a straight line becomes an arrow. And it's all being headed up by the 4-time champion, Tadese. It was a really pedestrian opening kilometre, and the ebullient character, who is a national hero in Eritrea, says, enough's enough, boys. How about we turn this into a proper race? So the man we expected to feature in the men's race is certainly imposing his personality on the very, very early stages. Meanwhile, we still have 4 Kenyans and 5 Ethiopians. 9 seem to be away and clear from the rest of the field. There was a brave attempt by Nikki Chappell, the Australian, who tried to go with the early pace. She's off the back there and may well have been swallowed up by the chase group, who are nowhere in sight at the moment. And this really is a fast pace they're producing here. Confirmation, Kenya and Ethiopia, as you would expect, because they've got 9 athletes here, level in the team competition, and Japan well clear in third at the moment. almost 3 minutes ahead of the Australians. And those medals will be keenly fought. Chinese television bringing you these great pictures. Arusi and Kipligat. Florence Kipligat just gone through shots in the top 20 performances of all time. Mengistu is there, Tadese is there, Toller is there. Meanwhile, from Faisa Tadese of Ethiopia to Zerzane Tadese of Eritrea. And you can see now what his injection of pace has done. I don't think he's gone crazy, because there wouldn't be so many still hanging on. But the groups are 2 or 3 abreast now, as opposed to stretching right the way across the road. Moses Kiprop just running to Tadese's left. His countryman Sege is behind him. Sege's a useful athlete, wearing 225. He was 5th last year. And incidentally, in the team competition, the Eritreans have had 5 straight silvers. 4 of them courtesy of the man currently driving the pace on. 8 medals Zerzane Tadese has in World Half Marathon Championship history, level with Tegla Larupe. So a team or individual medal of any colour will make him the most decorated athlete in this event's history, which would be quite some accolade, because those of you who are fond of the distance races know the further the race, the easier it is to get it wrong on the big occasion. But he has produced some amazing races over the last 4 years. And what's interesting when you look back at the history of the World Half Marathon Championships is that he's won it with every kind of performance. He's done the 3-second sprint for the line victory. He's also produced a time trial performance in Rio 2 years ago when he beat Patrick Macau by almost 2 minutes. So whether it's tactical or whether it's really fast from the off, Tadese has proven up until this point in his career that he is the master when it comes to 13.1 miles. Back with the women now. Only 7 in that group now. And another one of the Ethiopians, just a little gap opening up, so we're definitely beginning to see it start to boil down here. Tadese is there. Toller is there. Just trying to check whether that's Tune. It is. So Tune, Toller and Tadese tracking the 3 Kenyans. Florence Kipligat, the pre-race favourite. Penina Aruze, she's also gone under 68 minutes. Chep Karui, the teenager, and the light green shadows, each of them being tracked by an equally talented Ethiopian rival. So it looks as though we're down to 6 now in the women's race. And just as we've got Ethiopia versus Kenya in the women, it seems to be Eritrea versus Kenya in the men's, because Tadese has been joined by 2 of his countrymen up front. And after so many silver medals in the team competition, they would absolutely love to take the title. But the Kenyans have an all-star stellar lineup. There's one of the French competitors. By Lalisa Decisive. He's also gone under 60 this year. 59.59. And Ali Abdosh is running for them as well. I'll see if I can point him out to you. A great figure who caused a real moment at the World Championships last year. He was tripped and fell over in the 5,000 metre heats and produced a really brave attempt to get back into the race. He didn't manage to qualify automatically, but the German people took him to their heart, and every time he overtook one of the back markers, he got a massive cheer from the crowd. He went on to finish 6th in that final, and he's the Ethiopian champion over 5,000 metres this year. So now stepping up to the half marathon distance. But I just wonder whether Tadese's taken his foot off the gas a little bit, because although he went to the front after a ridiculously slow opening kilometre, it's now just all settled down again. Wilson Kiprop, 59.39 this year. He won the Paris half marathon. And this is interesting by Tadese, who's now running second from the right, because having looked as though we were going to see a familiar charge from the front, he's obviously changed his mind, the Eritrean, and thinks, right, okay, we're going to do this a different way, and I'm just going to watch what everybody else does. I'm going to watch the Kenyans, I'm going to track the Kenyans and see what they produce over the next few kilometres. Similar tactic to the one he produced when he won in Italy, in Udine in 2007. And it's two of the Kenyans off the front, now taking their turn to boss things along. And we told you there was a mass race going on. Although I think for some of them, it will be more of a jog than it will a race, but that's a pretty impressive and very enthusiastic start, isn't it? Waving to one or two of our other cameras on the course. That's more like it. There's some steady jogging going on there. Humidity has dropped by 1 or 2%, but it is still very, very sticky out there if you're not used to this climate. And fair play to the thousands of men and women who are still trying to get across the start line. A clear indication here that the Chinese really have taken this event to their heart. So they're just leaving Wujiang Square, and in not too much longer we will be seeing the leaders returning here in the women's race. And I don't think any of these men and women will be running in 67 minutes. Now, the last time we saw this women's race, there were 6. Now there are 4. And we knew the move would come. And indeed it has. Tadese is still there. Florence Kiplagat leading. Toller is there. And the Kenyans are really deciding that they want to take this title. Florence Kiplagat, Dire Tune is right behind her though, where she's been all the way through the race. Aruze is still there as well. But it's Florence Kiprop bossing things along here. She had that fantastic debut over the half marathon in Lille. And can she follow up Mary Kataney's great win last year? By 2 in a row here for Kenyan women. Aruse should still be comfortable at this pace. She won the Lisbon half marathon, the same place where Zerzené Tadese set the world record. Toller's really struggling off the back of that group. It's not surprising because she's gone 74 minutes this year, so she might really disintegrate over the closing kilometres. Meanwhile, the masses begin pouring their way onto the streets. Great to see everybody wearing the same colour. It's reminiscent of the great Ethiopian run, which is Africa's largest fun run in Addis Ababa every year. And the organisers pick one colour from the Ethiopian national flag, and it causes quite a sight. So 48-42 at 15k. They have slowed a little bit. They're now running at about 68.5 minute pace, which is understandable really, because to have produced a 67-minute race in this humidity would have been a real performance. So Tadese, 7th in the World Cross Country Championships. Just tripping up on the heels of Florence Kiprop as Kiprop moved from right to left. And Aruse now, the Kenyan, maybe just struggling. She could be dropping back to get a clear view of the water station, but I don't think she is. And the second Kenyan in that quartet is running into problems. Kiprop just had a little glance over her shoulder to see whether Aruse was still there, and she is. But the 31-year-old Kenyan is definitely off that group now. So with just around 6 kilometres to go, we are down to 3. Tadese on the right there. She won the Bologna half marathon this year, 21 years of age. So as the two Ethiopians battle with the Kenyan in the women's race, back with the men, we still have a very large group gathered here. Tadese is in the pack, Kiprop's in the pack, Mossop, all the classes there, but it's just got a little bit cagey. You can see back down the field that the rest of the guys have been put out the back, but team competition, well, it's not really telling us much there, because we know that the big nations are all in contention. Remember, if you've just joined us, you're allowed 5 athletes in this competition, and your top 3 all have their times added together, and that gives us the team gold, silver and bronze. So we will obviously keep you posted on that. But when there are still so many in contention, with 2 or 3 from each nation, then we know there's a lot of drama to unfold yet. South Africans going well at the moment, just on the left of screen. Kipruto. just dictating the pace at the front of that big group. And I suspect most of these guys are operating within their comfort level at the moment, because we certainly didn't see such a fast start to the men's race. And very interesting to see Tadese's tactic. Went to the front after a pedestrian opening kilometre, looked as though he was really going to put the hammer down, and all of a sudden he changes his mind, he settles back into the pack and lets everybody else decide what they want to do. So I think he's feeling confidence. Masai just running behind the two South Africans. Long way to go here though. Very cagey opening to the men's race, and it does normally, over the history of this event, it does quite often come down to a real tear-up in the closing stages. If you add up all the winning times in the male edition of this race, it's a lot less than it is in the women's. And I think, in fact, on 11 occasions, this World Championship half marathon title has been decided by a margin of 5 seconds or less. So in over half of the editions of this race that dates back to 1992, it's come down to a sprint finish. Tadese heads to the front again. Will it be a sprint, or will he begin whittling this group down? And back with the women, the big news is we're down to 2. Fete Tola has been dropped by these leading 2, so it's Florence Kiplagat and Dire Tune. There are the splits, 16:39, 16:10. So having slowed between 5 and 10, they sped up in the third of the 5 kilometres. But now it looks very much as though it is a 2-horse race. Can Florence Kiplagat produce enough over the next few kilometres to drop the Ethiopian? They are both 67-minute performers. Tune has more stamina, you would think, than her Kenyan countrywoman. Tadese with them for a lot of the early running. Very interesting arm action there from the Ethiopian. Still looks as though she's running okay. 3rd place. Very steady at the moment. But a lot of sideways movement in her arms as she just takes a glance over her shoulder. Back with the lead duo. It's Kenya against Ethiopia. We only have about 11, maybe 12 minutes of running to go here. The Ethiopian in 2nd place has run under 2:25 for the marathon. She won in Boston 2 years ago. The leader, though, is also world class. She took the world cross-country title last year. On the track, she set a new national record for 10,000 metres 12 months ago. And earlier this year in Lille, she debuted over the half marathon with a 67.40 that has put her in the top 20 of all time. Both have pedigree and both have belief, but who wants it more? Both going for water there. This will definitely be hurting both of them. Not sure we can read too much into the fact that Tune took the lead there temporarily. I think Kiprop making more effort to get a drink. So, back with the men. We'll keep you abreast of the women's race, don't worry. Tadese, the most famous man in Eritrea. He produced their finest moment since their independence in 1993 when he took his first world title over 20 kilometers in 2006. He's at the front and the big group are beginning to be whittled down. It looks as though 4 of the Kenyans are there. And the Eritrean will know, as you can just see 1 or 2 of the athletes who've been out the back of that group. 28.49 for 10k. So they're running just around about inside 61-minute pace at the moment, where this guy Tadese will be feeling comfortable. Remember, he's the world record holder with 58.23 in Lisbon back in March. But he will be aware that the Kenyans behind him have all run under 60 minutes. Kiprop just pointed over his shoulder, and I think he's just telling 3 of his teammates that one of the Kenyans has been dropped from that group, and you can see him running about 10 meters behind them with an Eritrean who's dropped back as well. So Tadese's injection of pace has started to have an impact here. They're almost halfway through this race. I know that's hard to believe in a half marathon when you see 29.55 on the clock. You still think there's a long way to go, but these guys are capable of running quicker than 13 miles an hour, which, to put that into context, is about the same speed that an average cyclist would produce. Not a club cyclist, but if you went out for a ride with your family, you might be cycling at the same pace these guys are running. Absolutely incredible. So Kipruto's there, Masai is there. I think Kiprop's still there. Kitwara. Kiprop just on his shoulder. Kitwara 59.34 this year. He trains with Asbel Kiprop, the very talented 1500 meter runner, the Kenyan. Back with the women though. It's still the same 2, and it's still Florence Kiplagat trying to find something to break the Ethiopians' momentum. They come up to the turn point here, almost approaching the 19-kilometer mark. And in the next couple of minutes, they will start to see Wuzhang Square loom into sight. Kiplagat just looked over to her left-hand side. I just wondered whether she was trying to get a glimpse of how her countrywomen were getting on, because these women are conscious of the team title as well. But she still hasn't been able to drop Dire Tune. Tune is a sub-2:25 marathon runner, but has she got a kick? Can she increase the tempo in the closing kilometers? We know Kiplagat's got decent speed because she's the Kenyan record holder over 10,000 meters. We know they're both quick over the half marathon, but this might come down to who's got a sprint. Bahane Adere was the last Ethiopian woman to take this title, and that was 8 years ago. There is such an intense rivalry between these 2 nations, both with huge reasons to want to win this. Kiplagat would really announce her arrival on the global scene if she were able to take this gold. Takes a special athlete to become a world champion on 2 different surfaces. Remember, as I said, she won the World Cross last year. But Tune is going to make her work very, very hard for it. It's an aerial shot of the leading men. It's running over Nanning Bridge. And a few more have dropped off the pace. So we've got 4 Kenyans, 2 Eritreans and an Ethiopian. And this is the race that we expected to see now. The Kenyans have taken 9 of these men's titles, but their most recent victory was Paul Kirui back in 2004, because for the last 4 years they've had to endure the sight of Tadese coming across the line with a big smile and a big Eritrean wave for his army of supporters. Can they break this history-making run of victories by Tadese? They're still running just outside 60-minute pace, but they've moved things along. And that's obvious because of the Eritrean and I think it's a South African being dropped off the back there, and one of the Ethiopians. So Kiprop and Kidwara are leading the Kenyan male charge, and Florence Kiplagat is now inside the last 1.1 kilometers, and she's trying to hurt Dire Tune. She's glancing, she's anxious. Both of these women will clearly be hurting. Neither of them are interested in a drink at this stage of the race. Oh, I beg your pardon, they are. I'm quite surprised by that. With less than a kilometre to go now. And is that an indication that Florence Kiplagat is just struggling a little bit? These conditions, make no mistake about it, are brutal for distance runners of any class. Arusi is in 3rd place. Faisa Tadese was in 3rd. The Ethiopian has now dropped back, so the savage early pace set by the East Africans is now causing them problems. And maybe this race will come down to who wants it the most. The 2 lead women are obscured by the official timing clock, I think. You can see the chase group there. You can in fact see Tadese with her wide swinging arm just running over the crown of the bridge. But as the clock car moves away, now you can see the Kenyan trying to break Dire Tune, and she's managed to get the gap. The crucial break by the Kenyan. And could that be the move that takes her to the World Championship title? The Ethiopian is a really, really competent marathon runner, and she'll dig deep now. But surely, if she's going to deny the Kenyan woman a fantastic victory, she's going to have to find something right now. Kiplagat looks over her shoulder, and her leg speed is increasing. She can see the finish, and she's closing in on a magnificent moment. 23 years of age, the Kenyan. Last year, she took the world cross-country title, and now she's reproducing that form on the roads of Nanning. She's been at the front all the way through. She's timed her break to perfection, and Florence Kiprop is the world champion last year in cross-country, this year at the World Half Marathon. She's absolutely exhausted, as is Tadese, the Ethiopian who hung on to her Kenyan rival for so long. But when the break came in the last few hundred meters, she couldn't respond. Panini Aruse has come through really strongly in the closing stages to make it a 1-3 for Kenya on the podium. She managed to get past facer Tadese with the wide swinging arms. The tall Ethiopian was in third for quite a long way, but she's really tired. You can see her start to grimace. She's glancing up. She's trying to ensure she does come across in fourth place, which she does. Tadese is fourth, Chepkurui is fifth, and Mengistu of Ethiopia in sixth place. And it'll come down to just seconds for that team title. Kenya 1, Ethiopia 2, Kenya 3, Ethiopia 4, Kenya 5, Ethiopia 6. And that means they've done it. They've taken the team title, the Kenyans. The two nations utterly dominant in the women's race, but back with the men now. And this time it's not Kenya Ethiopia, it's Kenya Eritrea. Because Zerzane Tadese is doing what we've seen him do for the last 4 years. He's dominated this distance, and he's dominated this World Half Marathon Championships since 2006. Can he make it 5 in a row? We're now down to the Eritrean plus 3 Kenyans. Just seeing the Japanese athletes coming over. Chepchikir, pretty tired. Good performance by Zhu. She is a quality competitor. The Chinese lady finished in 8th place, getting ahead of Chepchikir, which is a good performance inside the top 10 as Florence Kiprop goes through her interviews. Many more of those to come, I'm sure, and there will be huge press attention back home in Eritrea. All over the country, they'll be glued to their television screens. When he got married 2 years ago, 2,500 people went to the reception in Asmara, the capital, and it was live on Eritrean television. You cannot underestimate the impact that Zerzane Tadese has had on his home nation. He secured their first Olympic medal, finishing behind Bekele and Sihain, the 2 Ethiopians, back in Athens. He took the world cross-country title in hot, stifling conditions when he beat Bekele 3 years ago in Osaka. He had a brilliant race last year over the 10,000 meters on the track, set a blistering pace, and burnt off all but the Ethiopian. So he's a bronze and silver medalist on the track. He's a gold medalist on cross country, and he's a 4-time gold medalist on the roads. Kipruto, Kitwara and Kiprop are the three alongside him. Can the Kenyans work together and somehow figure out a way of beating the Eritrean? They've got the raw speed, of that there is no doubt. They're looking across at one another, the three Kenyans. In fact, they might just be exchanging a few words with Tadese. They were just saying to him, hey, listen, don't zigzag across the road because we're trying to run in a straight line. And that is something that Tadese has done in the past. If you've ever watched the Great North Run, you may remember a blisteringly quick time by the Eritrean. And he was zigzagging across the road then. Now, I could be wrong, but I just wondered whether there was a slight limp in the Eritrean's foot cadence. He, just for a moment there, looked a little bit uncomfortable. Kipruto, Kitwara, Kiprop forcing the pace. He does have a unique action, the Eritrean. There's confirmation there that it's Sege, who was 5th last year, the Eritrean, and he's in 5th place again at the moment. But I could be wrong. I just wondered whether the Eritrean was carrying ever such a slight limp there in his action. He certainly went behind the three Kenyans. It could have been that after they had a word with him about running in their space, that he decided just to drop back a yard or two. But we'll keep our eye on the 4-time champion, because as I've said, make no mistake about it, we're looking at Samuel Tsege in 5th place there, looking very steady and very comfortable. He's coached by the same man who looks after Zerzane. He's got a best of just outside 60 minutes this year. Tadese might well be okay, but he is absolutely going to have to do this the hard way, because those three Kenyans are all capable of running under 60 minutes. They haven't won this title for 6 years, and that will hurt. They've got such a rich history. Paul Turgat has taken the title twice. Moses Tanui has won it for Kenya. Martin Lell, the multiple winner of the London Marathon, he took the title in 2003. And Paul Kirui, as I mentioned a little earlier, was the champion in 2004. There is Tsege. We're just watching him from the back. And one of the Kenyans is struggling. Kitwara and Kiprop are there, and that must mean it's Kipruto who's off the back. Little bit of distance opening up now. So Tadese was having to contend with 3 Kenyans. Perhaps it's now 2, because Kipruto is struggling. There's the indication, and they've taken, what, 10 or 15 metres out of him in the last couple of hundred strides. So now the man who was 3rd in Lille earlier this year, who's capable of 59.39 at his best, he will be in a battle for 4th with Samuel Tsege, the second of the 2 Eritreans. So Kiprop and Kitwara are the two men hoping to bring this Eritrean's dynasty of gold to an end here on the streets of China. Kitwara on the left of your screen, you may remember, as we just get a glimpse of Silas Kipruto, that long loping stride, but it's going to be a tight run into the finish for him. Kitwara there, running on the left, qualified to compete for Kenya at the World Championships last year, but then disobeyed a team order and ran in Atlanta and was dropped from the team. So he's had an interesting year or so, and so maybe he has more reason than most to want to fly the Kenyan flag proudly. 59.34 for the man running on the left of your screen. Kiprop won the Paris half marathon title. He's just tucked in behind Tadese. Can the two Kenyans somehow conjure something and find a way to beat the tiny powerhouse? You can see the distance that they've taken out of Kipruto. It will be a tough run into the finish for him. We've seen him win this title a number of ways. In 2007, he outsprinted Patrick Macau by just 3 seconds in Italy. The following year in Rio, he beat Matt out by almost 2 minutes, grinding it out with a fast pace from the beginning. And is this the start of Tadese's bid for a 5th gold? The Kenyans were running side by side, but now Kitwara is following Kiprop. So they're running pretty much in a straight line now, and that gives an indication that perhaps the Eritrean is just beginning to wind it up. They'll only have about 10 minutes of running left in this race. It's Eritrea 1, and yes, a clear indication that he's definitely putting his foot down, because Kitwara's been dropped. Still running okay. He's the 4th fastest in the world this year, but Tadese is the man with number 1 by his name. Not only the defending champion, but the world record holder as well. And now he's injecting the pace that is causing the others to suffer. That's Silas Kipruto. He was there in contention for such a long time, and where there were 3 Kenyans ready to work together, now there is just one, and his name is Wilson Kiprop. He is the 6th fastest athlete in the world this year at this distance. He is genuinely world class, but so too is the Eritrean Zerzane Tadese. They're running just outside 60-minute pace, I think, and Kiprop is still there. He won the African Championship over 10,000 meters in Nairobi. He's the Kenyan champion. He won the Paris half marathon this year. But it is going to take the best performance of his career so far to deny Zerzane Tadese a 5th successive gold medal in this event. On his way, the Eritrean, to becoming the most decorated athlete in the history of this event. Remember, locked together up until today with Tegle Larupe with 8 medals. He is going to make it 9, but will it be gold or silver? Two different styles, two different sizes of athletes. Kiprop's looking over. Once, twice he's glanced at Tadese, and he's just pulled alongside him to say, hey, I know you're a four-time champion, but I'm the African king over 10,000 metres, and I believe I've got the pace over the closing stages to put Kenya 1 and Eritrea 2. Tucks in behind again now. But that was a little psychological move on the Eritrean. Not only pulling alongside, but looking directly at him on several occasions. Coming up to the turn now. They're just about to hit the 19-kilometre point. And still the tall, loping, gliding Kenyan is there. Tadese, much smaller, rocks around from side to side with his technique. And he is going to have to produce another moment of magic here. The Kenyan is still there. Tadese hasn't had the perfect build-up this year. Of course, he broke the world record in Lisbon, but he was 7th with his London Marathon effort in April, and he was disappointed with that. He had to drop out of the Bogota half marathon in the summer, but he went back to his training base. He splits his time between Madrid and Eritrea. He went back to his training base and said he wanted to focus on the big one, which for him was defending his title and making it 5 in a row. But look at Wilson Kiprop, the Kenyan now with a 1 or 2 yard advantage. We're looking at Kitwara in 3rd place. Just wonder whether the Kenyan is picking up a bit of momentum again. He looks okay, doesn't he? Obviously went through a bad patch when Kiprop and Tadese up the pace, but Kitwara is in bronze medal position at the moment. But the last glimpse we had of the two leaders was that Wilson Kiprop had just taken a couple of yards ahead of Tadese. Now they're side by side once again. Tadese moving across to his left-hand side. Not liking the fact that the Kenyan was shoulder to shoulder with him. Now he zigzags back in. We saw him do this when he won the Great North Run a few years ago, and he's really starting to hurt Wilson Kiprop. The Kenyan just glanced over to his left to see what Tadese was doing. And now they're side by side once again. Are we about to see an end to this impressive dominance that Tadese has imposed on this event since 2006? We've seen him cope with humidity before, winning the World Cross Country Championships in Mombasa. We've seen him come through tight finishes before, when he beat Patrick Macau of Kenya in 2007 by 3 seconds in Udine. And once again, it is a Kenyan threatening his dominance. Every single time he's won this title, it is a Kenyan who has finished in 2nd place. Will it be the same once again? That's Kitwara. He's in 3rd at the moment. But still, Kiprop and Tadese are locked together. Inside a kilometre to go now. They're closing in on Wuzhang Square. And the result of this race is still very undecided. Who will want it most? Tadese going for 5 in a row. Kiprop, African champion over 10,000 meters, but this would be another big marker in his career. And he will be aware that it has been a Kenyan who has lost out to Tadese for the last 4 years. What a moment it would be for him. We're watching the back of Sami Kitwara. He's in 3rd place at the moment. What a moment it would be for Kiprop if he could end the Eritrean's dominance and become his country's first champion in 6 years. The Eritrean kicks again, and still the taller figure loping behind him responds. Well inside the last kilometre now. There they are, just obscured by the clock on the race car. And Tadese is trying to break the spirit of the Kenyan. Has Kiprop got anything with which to respond? He's still there, looking at the Eritrean, trying to work out if he can summon something over the closing stages. This is getting tight. It's going to come down to a real tear-up here, and Kiprop, the Kenyan, looks good. They're both world-class over 10,000 metres. And at the moment, try as he might, Tadese is not shaking off the tall shadow of the Kenyan. They're still neck and neck coming into the finish. This is going to be so close. They're both exhausted, and it's Kiprop. Wilson Kiprop is coming away. The first Kenyan champion for 6 years, and he has broken the spirit of the Eritrean who has dominated this race since 2006. Tadese is limping as Kitwara comes across in 3rd place. There was a hint of a limp at about 15 kilometres, and try as he might, Zerzane Tadese just could not get away from Wilson Kiprop. And the African champion over 10,000 metres is now the champion of the world over the half marathon distance out here on the streets of Nanning in China. We said that Tadese may have a problem, and indeed it transpired he did. How close he came to making it 5 in a row, but it was Wilson Kiprop who found that little extra something inside the last 100 metres to come away for a marvellous moment for his country. Confirmation that the Kenyans have taken the team title as well. And for the 6th year in succession, it's silver for the Eritreans. Well, if you're in any doubt as to how savage the conditions were today, that gives you a clue as to what these men have given here. Mengistu looking very tired. Still a great performance coming in under 63 minutes in this humidity. But today that was only good enough for 15th. Quigley, the American, having a good race there. Frenchman just behind him. And it is good to see that it's not just the African nations turning out here in force. And I think anybody who can produce a sub 64, 63-minute half marathon in these conditions can be proud of their performance. It is the worst kind of heat to compete in, humidity. You just don't feel like you're getting anything in with each breath you take. And that has been a savage but thoroughly entertaining day on the streets of Nanning. What a battle to the line between Tadese and Wilson Kiprop. We'll hear more about Tadese in the press conference after the race. And immediately he crossed the line, he was limping. I thought his cadence looked a little bit troubled as he reached the 15k marker. But let's not take anything away from Wilson Kiprop. He adds his name to a rich list of Kenyan World Half Marathon champions and restores his country to the top of the podium for the first time in 6 years. Good effort from the French team. A couple of their athletes running together. There's Ibata of Japan. Big sprint being won by the Frenchman. Coming in under 65 minutes. Big group together. El Hima shakes his head. There's Yang, Chinese cross-country champion 3 years ago. They had 3 in this race, the Chinese. Gao, who was their champion over 5,000, and Li, their winner over the 10. Wujiang Square has seen 2 fantastic races here this morning. Still only just gone 10 o'clock local time. Ilunga coming in now. Small figure, similar build to Tadese. Good run this by Ilunga. Well, there'll be some very, very tired legs getting treatment in the elite athletes tent. There's Li, as I was mentioning, the national champion over 10,000 meters. In a bit of a battle for the line. Can he find something? The Lager boy, unfortunately, takes that moment away from him, the Botswanan. Oh, what a great race it's provided once again. Li will get plenty of local support from the media here. He'll be doing a fair few interviews. It was always going to be difficult for the Chinese contingent here to get among the medals. And we thought the Eritrean was limping, but look at the rear centre of your screen there. You can see the Chinese athlete as we look at one of the Botswanans coming in. Ramoseka Raobin. So he hasn't been the first Botswanan to finish, because we saw Selagboy out sprinting the Chinese man. And it's one of the Chinese athletes closing in now on what's been a tough day for him. And he also, as I was saying a few moments ago, looks as though he might be carrying a little bit of a knock. He's leaning quite heavily to his right-hand side. Chinese champion over 5,000 metres. That's just over 3 miles. And today he's done 13.1. And it looks as though it's been a hard day for him. He's got in just inside 69 minutes. But he looks a little bit tired there. A hard day on the streets of his home country for Lai Yun Jiao. There is confirmation then that Florence Kiplagat is the champion for 2010. A magnificent push inside the last 400 metres to deny Dire Chune this gold medal by 10 seconds. And Penina Aruzai takes the bronze. Nicola Chappell, the Australian who bravely went with that pace, faded to 12th place. Good to see Claire Hallisey of Great Britain inside the top 20. But really the pace in that women's race set early on by the East Africans proved to be savage for most of the rest of the field. And it was Kenya and Ethiopia who occupied the first 7 spots. And what about that? For the first time in 5 years, it is not a 1 next to the name of Zerzane Tadese. Wilson Kiprop out kicking the 4-time winner by 4 seconds. Tadese has to settle for silver, and it's Kitwara who comes away with the bronze. And great to see so many personal bests back down the field. From 11 to 15. Setting best times. De Souza there of Brazil getting in the top 20. And as we said all through the race, although you're used to seeing fields come home with 61 or 62 minute performances, it was really, really difficult today with such intense humidity. And anything under 64 minutes, you have to take your hat off. Fei Li got a big cheer from the Chinese crowd. He just lost out in that sprint finish to Salagaboy, the Botswanan. And then Gao came home in 55th. The American Ben Bruce just finding those conditions pretty tough, but he hauled his way around in under 70 minutes. Confirmation that the men's team victory goes to Kenya. That's their 13th team title, incidentally. Eritrea get their 6th successive silver, and it was Ethiopia who got the bronze. It's been a privilege to watch these 2 events. So from Nanning, you've been listening to Rob Walker. Many thanks for tuning in. See you next year for what will be the 20th edition of the IAAF World Half Marathon Championships. But for now, from China, goodbye.